in the quiet countryside of eastern England, where the mist rolls across the marshes and the wind whispers through the ancient trees. There is a legend that has haunted people for centuries, a legend so terrifying that even today, locals hesitate to walk alone at night. They call it the Black Shuck, a gigantic, supernatural dog with eyes like burning coals, a creature said to bring death and despair to anyone who crosses its path. The earliest tales date back hundreds of years, rooted in the counties of Norfolk, Suffolk, and Cambridgeshire. These lands are dotted with lonely roads, ruined abbeys, and windswept coastlines, the perfect stage for a phantom hound to stalk its prey. Descriptions of the beast vary slightly, but one detail always remains the same: its glowing red eyes. Some say they are like two fiery lanterns burning in the darkness. Others claim they are the size of dinner plates, staring deep into a victim's soul. The dog itself is massive, bigger than a horse in some stories, with shaggy black fur and long yellow fangs. When it walks, its paws make no sound. When it runs, the air grows cold, as if death itself has entered the world. The name Shuck is believed to come from an Old English word skuka or sioka, meaning demon or fiend, and that is exactly how the people of medieval England saw it, not as a mere animal, but as a manifestation of the devil himself. But why did this legend take hold? Was it just a ghost story told by frightened villagers, or could there be some truth buried within the myth? One of the most chilling and famous accounts of the Black Shuck happened in the year 1577, during a violent thunderstorm. The story begins in the small town of Bungay, Suffolk, inside the humble church of Steady Mary's. The congregation had gathered for Sunday service, unaware that something beyond imagination was about to enter their sacred space. As lightning tore across the sky and thunder shook the ground, the doors of the church burst open. A massive black dog stormed down the aisle, its eyes blazing, its breath hot like fire. Panic spread instantly. People screamed, prayed, and tried to flee, but the beast moved with unholy speed. Witnesses later claimed it snapped the necks of two worshippers in an instant before rushing back out into the storm, and then the church bells rang on their own. The terrifying encounter did not end there, for on that very same day, the Black Shuck appeared again in the nearby town of Blythburgh, only a few miles away. Inside the Holy Trinity Church, lightning struck the building as the beast prowled among the people. When the storm passed, 3 parishioners were dead. The great church door bore burn marks that some say came from the very claws of the monster. Even now, centuries later, the scorched wood remains a dark reminder of the day death walked through the house of God. But this was only the beginning of the Black Shuck's legend. Long before the terrifying events at Bungay and Blythburgh, ghostly black dogs were whispered across the English countryside. These spectral hounds were often linked with death, darkness, and the unknown. Some appeared before a person died, silently watching. Others roamed the moors as hunters of souls. In Norfolk, Suffolk, and Cambridgeshire, the Black Shuck was more than a story, it was a warning. Farmers spoke of seeing the creature at the edge of fields, its massive form moving silently through foggy nights. Shepherds reported footprints far larger than any dog, disappearing suddenly as if swallowed by the earth. Many believed the Shuck was demonic, a servant of the devil sent to punish sinners or strike fear into the hearts of the righteous. Others thought it was a restless spirit, trapped between the worlds of the living and dead, doomed to roam searching for lost souls. Legends suggest it has existed for centuries, leaving a trail of death in its wake. Some historians argue the sightings could be storms, lightning, or optical illusions. Yet accounts consistently describe glowing eyes, massive size, and unnatural speed. Could the mind alone explain these encounters, or is something darker at work? The Black Shuck also became part of local superstition. Churches and villages used the tale to teach lessons. Respect the sacred, fear the devil, and never wander alone at night. Parish records from the 16th and 17th centuries note unusual black dog sightings, often linked to storms or tragedy. Interestingly, some legends claim the shuck can be protective. If it appears but does not attack, it might be warning of danger, a mysterious guardian in disguise. Across England, similar creatures had different names. Barghest in the north, Padfoot elsewhere, but all shared the same terrifying image. A massive black hound with burning eyes, roaming silently through darkness. Even today, modern sightings occur on foggy roads, abandoned buildings, and forests where the wind seems alive. Some researchers believe the shuck's legend stems from ancient pagan beliefs, a symbol of death and the afterlife, preserved as Christianity spread. Could this explain why it often appears in churches, places meant to protect, yet finds its victims there? And perhaps most chilling, some believe the Black Shuck still prowls England, waiting in the mist for those foolish enough to wander alone after dark. After the infamous storm of 1577, stories of the Black Shuck spread like wildfire. Villagers whispered of seeing the beast on lonely roads, graveyards, and coastlines where the wind howls endlessly. Each account shared one detail, the sense of doom that followed. One of the most chilling encounters came from a traveler walking along the coast of Norfolk. He described hearing footsteps behind him, heavy and steady, but when he turned, no one was there. Moments later, a massive black dog appeared, its glowing eyes burning through the mist. The man froze. The shuck padded closer, silent, its body towering above him. Then, just as suddenly, it vanished into thin air. The traveler later fell ill and died within the year. Locals said the shuck had marked him. In another tale, a group of fishermen claimed they saw the dog pacing the cliffs near Cromer. Its red eyes glowed against the dark sky as waves crashed below. They believed it was an omen of death at sea. Days later, a violent storm sank several ships, killing many sailors. To this day, old fishermen still mutter about the shuck of Cromer when storms roll in. The Black Shuck was not always silent. Some witnesses described hearing its howl, a deep, bone-chilling cry that echoed through valleys and across fields. Unlike a normal dog's bark, this sound was said to rattle the soul, leaving animals restless and people frozen with terror. Villagers often locked their doors at night, convinced that hearing the shuck's cry meant someone in the household would not live to see morning. But not all stories end in death. In one account, a farmer returning home late at night saw the shuck appear on the road ahead. Terrified, he gripped his lantern and prepared to run. Yet the dog simply walked beside him, silent and steady, until he reached his farmhouse. As the man opened the gate, the shuck disappeared. The farmer believed it had protected him from unseen danger on the road. These conflicting stories, sometimes bringing death, sometimes offering protection, make the Black Shuck one of the most mysterious legends of all time. Was it an omen, a hunter of souls, or a guardian spirit cloaked in terrifying form? Whatever the truth, one thing is certain. Every sighting left witnesses shaken, convinced they had looked into the eyes of something not of this world. And the legend only grew stronger with each new story whispered by candlelight. The story of the Black Shuck might have remained a fireside legend if not for the physical scars it left behind. To this day, visitors to Holy Trinity Church in Blythburgh are shown the marks said to be burned into the ancient wooden doors by the demon dog itself. It was August 4, 1577, a fierce thunderstorm raged over the Suffolk coast. Inside the church, villagers had gathered to pray for safety. Suddenly, lightning split the sky, and with it came something far worse. Witnesses swore a monstrous black hound burst through the great doors, its eyes blazing like fire. It raced down the nave, striking terror into everyone inside. By the time the beast vanished, 3 parishioners were dead. Some said they were crushed, others that the dog snapped their necks with supernatural strength. But what remained for all to see were the burn marks scorched deep into the oak doors. Long, jagged claw marks darkened as if by lightning, yet shaped like the scratch of a giant animal. Those marks are still visible more than 400 years later. Tourists and locals alike trace their fingers over them, wondering, are they truly the fingerprints of the devil's hound, or simply the scars of fire from a violent storm? Skeptics argue that lightning could have caused the burns. Believers insist the Shuck left its proof behind. But Blythburgh was not the only church touched by the beast. On the same day, miles away in Bungay, the Black Shuck appeared in Steady Mary's church. As thunder shook the town, the hound stormed inside, attacking worshippers. 2 men were killed instantly. The animal then leapt through the church, leaving behind collapsed pews and a congregation in panic. According to records, when it finally vanished, the church's bell tower collapsed in the storm. The twin attacks on the same day etched the Black Shuck into English folklore forever. Scholars have since studied the events of 1577, trying to separate fact from fiction. Some suggest the chaos was caused by a rare, meteorological event called ball lightning, where glowing orbs of energy strike buildings during storms, sometimes leaving scorch marks. Could terrified villagers have mistaken this strange phenomenon for a demonic dog? Yet the eyewitnesses were adamant. They saw a beast with glowing eyes, and they remembered the sound of claws on stone as it charged through the church. To them, the scorch marks were not lightning. They were proof that something unholy had entered their sacred space. And so, for centuries, the Black Shuck has remained tied to the churches of Bungay and Blythburgh. These holy places, meant to protect and comfort, instead became the very stage for one of England's most chilling legends. The question remains, were those parishioners victims of superstition and storm, or did they truly come face to face with the devil's hound? Though centuries have passed since the infamous 1577 storm, the Black Shuck legend has refused to fade. Even in modern times, villagers, travelers, and hikers report eerie encounters that echo the old stories. These accounts suggest the creature may still prowl the foggy countryside of Norfolk, Suffolk, and Cambridgeshire. One such encounter occurred in the 1982, a couple driving along a narrow country lane at night reported seeing a huge black dog crossing the road. Its eyes glowed an unnatural red, illuminating the mist around it. The vehicle's engine stalled as if frozen by fear. When the couple regained control, the dog had vanished. Locals later said the area was a known Black Shuck hotspot, a place where foggy nights often bring sightings of a massive spectral hound. In another modern tale, a group of hikers near a forest outside Norwich heard strange howls that echoed unnaturally, unlike any dog or wolf. Moments later, a shadow moved between the trees. Witnesses described a large black figure with glowing eyes watching them silently before disappearing into the mist. Terrified, they left the area immediately, convinced it was the same legendary demon dog that had haunted their ancestors. Some paranormal researchers believe these modern encounters may be explained by a mix of natural phenomena, folklore influence, and imagination. Yet the consistency of sightings across centuries is hard to dismiss. Many of the locations are remote, mist-covered, and near places steeped in history, the perfect setting for a legendary creature to persist. Interestingly, the Black Shuck is sometimes linked to omens. In both historical and contemporary accounts, seeing the beast or even its glowing eyes has been associated with impending death, illness, or misfortune. Farmers, travelers, and locals have long respected the warning, "Do not walk alone after dark." Despite centuries of storytelling, the Black Shuck remains a symbol of mystery, fear, and the unknown. It straddles the line between folklore and reality, an eternal guardian or hunter lurking in the shadows of the English countryside. Some claim the demon dog only appears to those who are lost, frightened, or disrespectful of the land. Others argue it seeks out misfortune for anyone daring to witness it. Whatever the truth, one thing is certain: the legend endures, haunting minds, inspiring books, films, and stories, and ensuring that the Black Shuck is never truly gone. The question remains: is the Black Shuck a supernatural guardian, a demon, or simply a shadow of human fear? For centuries, people have asked, and the creature still walks silently, unseen yet ever present. As the centuries passed, the Black Shuck legend spread beyond Suffolk and Norfolk, weaving itself into the broader tapestry of English folklore. Across the country, stories of spectral black dogs appeared under different names, each sharing a chilling resemblance to the original tales. In the north, villagers spoke of the Barghest, a monstrous hound that prowled the Yorkshire moors, bringing misfortune and death. In parts of East Anglia, the Skriker haunted forests and marshlands, its eyes glowing like embers in the night. Even in southern England, the Padfoot crept along lonely lanes, a shadowy companion for travelers who dared walk after dark. Despite regional variations, certain traits remained consistent: massive size, black fur, glowing eyes, and an aura of supernatural dread. Many of these sightings were reported near churches, graveyards, and old ruins, places steeped in centuries of history. The connection to sacred or cursed sites reinforced the idea that the Black Shuck was no ordinary animal but a spirit or demon tied to the land itself. Stories often described the creature appearing alone or in pairs, silently following humans, sometimes disappearing suddenly, leaving only footprints or a lingering sense of fear. Some claimed that it would watch from a distance, its glowing eyes tracking the movements of those who wandered too far into the countryside. Others reported hearing the eerie howl of the hound, a sound that chilled the blood, carrying through foggy fields and forested hills. The consistency of these accounts suggested that the legend was more than superstition. Chroniclers in the 17th and 18th centuries documented sightings in parish records, noting the fear that gripped communities whenever the Black Shuck or its regional equivalence was reported. In every account, the creature seemed to embody the unknown, a symbol of death, warning, and the supernatural. As industrialization spread, fewer people roamed the remote countryside at night, and sightings became rarer. Yet even into the 20th century, stories persisted. Farmers, travelers, and children continued to speak in hushed tones of shadowy black dogs, eyes glowing in the dark, appearing for a moment before vanishing into the mist. The legends persisted, immortalized in books, newspapers, and folklore collections. The Black Shuck's presence extended beyond England. Tales of spectral hounds appeared in Scotland, Wales, and Ireland, each with their own names and local twists. The creature became a cultural symbol, an enduring part of folklore, a reminder of how fear, imagination, and history could merge into a story that refuses to fade. Even today, those familiar with the tales travel the old roads and forest paths with caution, half expecting to see a dark shape emerge from the mist, eyes glowing with a fire that has haunted England for centuries. Not all sightings of the Black Shuck were mere encounters. For many, the appearance of the beast carried a deeper and darker meaning. Folklore across East Anglia and beyond tied the hound to one chilling belief: to see the creature was to be marked for death. Villagers whispered that if the Shuck crossed your path, you would die within a year. Sometimes the beast was said to appear only days before a funeral, as if it had come to collect the soul of the doomed. In these stories, the hound was not simply an animal, it was a harbinger, a messenger of the grave. Sailors along the Norfolk coast told of hearing the Shuck's howl before ships were lost at sea. They described the sound as louder than any storm wind, stretching across the waves like a banshee's scream. To the fishermen, it was no coincidence that whenever the howl rang out, tragedy soon followed. Boats overturned, storms sank fleets, and lives were claimed by the sea. The hound, they believed, walked not only the roads but also the cliffs, warning of death that could not be escaped. Families in rural villages spoke of nights when the Shuck sat silently outside their homes, its glowing eyes fixed on the windows. Some who saw it claimed a loved one inside the house died soon after. These tales gave the beast an almost supernatural role, one that blurred the line between hunter and judge. It did not always attack, sometimes it only watched, waiting patiently, as if its presence alone sealed a person's fate. The Black Shuck's role as an omen of death made it far more terrifying than any ordinary predator. An animal can be fought, chased, or even killed. But how do you escape a shadow that foretells the end of your life? This fear sank deep into the people's minds, ensuring that the legend would never be forgotten. Even into the 19th and 20th centuries, locals repeated warnings: if you see the Black Shuck, count your days. The superstition became so widespread that even skeptics hesitated to dismiss it aloud, fearing the very act of denial might draw the beast to their door. For some, the Shuck was no longer just a demon hound, it had become the embodiment of death itself, cloaked in fur and mist, forever haunting the lonely paths, cliffs, and churchyards of England. On stormy nights, travelers across East Anglia told of hearing the thundering footsteps of the Black Shuck before ever seeing it. Many claimed that once the hound fixed its gaze on you, escape was nearly impossible. Its glowing eyes seemed to pierce the very soul, and its silent, stalking presence made the wind itself feel heavy with fear. One night, a young shepherd walking across the Norfolk moors reported a chilling encounter. Mist had settled thick and white, blanketing the uneven terrain. He heard footsteps behind him, loud, deliberate, and heavier than any human or animal could produce. As he turned, a massive black dog materialized from the fog, eyes glowing red like coals. The shepherd ran, stumbling over rocks and heather, but the creature kept pace effortlessly. The chase seemed to stretch on for hours. Every turn of the path revealed the same figure, unblinking and relentless. The shepherd could feel the ground tremble beneath its paws. Heart pounding, he finally reached the edge of a small village. When he dared to look back, the creature had vanished, leaving only the lingering mist and the memory of a presence that was more than natural. Other accounts described similar pursuits. Farmers on late night journeys said the dog would appear suddenly at the edge of a field or on an unlit lane and then silently disappear just as quickly. Some believed the Shuck enjoyed the chase, tormenting the living, testing their courage, or delivering a warning from the unseen realm. Folklorists noted that these chases were not always fatal, but they left an indelible mark on those who survived. People spoke of nightmares, illness, and a lingering sense of dread, convinced that the Black Shuck had touched their lives in some permanent way. The creature was no longer just a story to frighten children. It was a force of nature and the supernatural intertwined, an entity that demanded respect and fear in equal measure. Even in modern times, hikers and late-night travelers report fleeting glimpses of a shadowy black hound moving with unnatural speed across fog-laden moors. Its eyes are described as impossibly bright, burning with a light that seems to exist outside the natural world. Whether a spirit, a demon, or a trick of the mind, the legend persists because it is seen, felt, and feared across centuries. Some historians suggest that the chase stories may have roots in ancient pagan beliefs, a warning to travelers to respect the land and the unseen spirits said to inhabit it. Others argue that it is merely a product of imagination, heightened by isolation and fog. Yet for those who claim to have encountered the Black Shuck firsthand, the memory is all too real. The moors of Norfolk and Suffolk remain silent witnesses. On misty nights, the wind carries whispers of past chases, footsteps that vanish into fog, and eyes that burn red in the darkness, forever watching, forever hunting. Long before villagers whispered about the glowing eyes on foggy nights, the legend of the Black Shuck was believed to have roots in ancient times. Some historians trace its origins back to the Vikings, who landed on the shores of East Anglia over 1,000 years ago. The Norse settlers carried with them tales of a monstrous hound called the Garmr, guardian of the underworld. It was said to howl before Ragnarok, the end of the world. Over generations, this myth may have merged with English folklore, birthing the creature known as the Black Shuck. The Saxons too had their tales. They spoke of the Barghest, a spectral dog that roamed graveyards and crossroads, bringing death to those who saw it. To them, dogs were more than animals. They were symbols of both loyalty and doom. When they buried their dead, they sometimes placed the bones of hounds in the graves, believing they would guard souls in the afterlife. Perhaps over centuries, these beliefs tangled together, creating the fearsome image of a dog that walked not among the living, but between worlds. The medieval church further fueled the terror. Priests warned of the black dog of hell, a servant of the devil sent to haunt sinners and test the faithful. In times of plague and famine, when death walked daily through the villages, the Black Shuck became a visible face of invisible fear. To see it was to be reminded of one's own fragile mortality. But not all tales painted the Shuck as purely evil. In certain villages, the creature was seen as a protector, guiding lost travelers home across the marshes. A sudden glimpse of glowing eyes in the dark might lead a wanderer safely to the edge of their village instead of into a deadly bog. In these rare accounts, the Black Shuck was a spirit of both warning and mercy, unpredictable yet deeply tied to the land and its people. What made the legend endure was not only its fearsome imagery but its flexibility. The Shuck was a demon, a guardian, a trickster, or a messenger of death, depending on who told the tale. It carried echoes of Norse myth, Saxon ritual, Christian warning, and rural superstition all at once. To this day, that blend of mystery ensures the creature's place in folklore. And so, across centuries, the Black Shuck became more than a story, it became a symbol, a reminder that in the dark, in the mist, and in the quiet moments between footsteps, something ancient might still be walking beside us. Over the centuries, accounts of the Black Shuck revealed striking patterns. Witnesses often reported seeing it during storms, on foggy nights, or near graveyards and churches. The circumstances were consistent enough that villagers began to associate certain events with the hound's appearance. Many encounters occurred along lonely roads or marshy paths, places where travel was perilous and visibility low, giving the creature an added air of supernatural inevitability. In 1742, a well-documented sighting occurred near Saxmundham, Suffolk. A man walking home from market described a gigantic, black dog with red eyes emerging from the mist. It blocked his path, growling silently, and followed him for half a mile before vanishing. That same year, a farmer reported the creature prowling his fields, only to find several of his livestock dead the following morning. Such reports reinforced the belief that the Shuck was both observer and omener, warning that death or misfortune was near. Stories from the 19th century continued the trend. Travelers along Norfolk lanes described feeling an unseen weight on their shoulders, as if the Shuck was invisible but pressing down upon them. Often, a sudden chill would follow, accompanied by the sound of heavy paws moving across stone or earth. In many cases, these sensations were reported without any visual confirmation, suggesting the creature could appear partially in the physical world and partially in the spiritual. Across the historical records, certain traits remained constant: glowing red eyes, immense size, silent movement, and appearances tied to storms or death. Even when human witnesses were unsure of what they saw, the collective memory of the Shuck was reinforced by stories told around fires, in taverns, and in parish records. The creature's consistency over centuries contributed to its terrifying reputation. It was never just a one-time event. Families reported seeing it repeatedly over generations, sometimes on the same roads, near the same churches, or at identical crossroads. In some parishes, villagers would warn newcomers about certain nights or paths, citing centuries of encounters that had left indelible fear. The Black Shuck's presence, then, was not random. It followed patterns that humans could observe, anticipate, and dread, making the creature seem both intelligent and purposeful. To this day, these historical encounters remind us that folklore is more than entertainment. It is a record of fear, survival, and respect for the unknown. Even in the modern era, these patterns persist. Hikers, drivers, and night travelers report similar circumstances: fog, mist, remote paths, and the sudden appearance of a shadowy black hound with glowing eyes. Whether these are echoes of ancient beliefs or truly supernatural events, the pattern remains, bridging centuries and proving that some legends never fade, they evolve. The most haunting part of the Black Shuck legend lies not in the myths, but in the voices of those who swore they had seen it. For centuries, villagers, travelers, and even respected members of society left behind written and spoken accounts that carried an unsettling consistency. One 19th-century letter from a Norfolk farmer described how he had been walking home late at night when the air suddenly grew cold. He felt a weight pressing against his chest, though the road was empty. Moments later, he saw two glowing eyes ahead, hovering at the height of a man's chest. A massive dog-like shape emerged, its breath clouding in the frosty air. The farmer dropped his lantern and ran. Though he made it home safely, he later wrote that his health declined for weeks afterward, as though the encounter had drained his very spirit. In another testimony, a sailor returning to Suffolk claimed that while crossing a marsh path, he was followed by the sound of heavy paws splashing through the mud. No matter how quickly he walked, the sound followed him step for step. He dared not look back until he reached the edge of his village. When he turned, the path behind him was empty, but the impression of paw prints remained fresh in the mud. Even clergy were not immune. A parish priest in the early 1800s recorded that he had seen a giant black hound pacing in the graveyard during evening prayers. He described its eyes as two burning coals in the fog. The priest tried to approach it, but the hound dissolved into mist before his eyes. He wrote that the congregation never returned for night services again. Generations passed, yet the stories remained remarkably similar. Witnesses described the same chilling details: glowing red eyes, unnatural silence, sudden cold, and the sense of being stalked by something beyond mortal understanding. For skeptics, These tales might seem like superstition born of fear and isolation, but for those who claimed to have experienced it, there was no doubt. The Shuck was real. Its gaze carried weight, its presence carried dread, and its memory lingered long after it had vanished. Each testimony, whether written in dusty parish records or whispered in a tavern corner, became another thread in the tapestry of the Black Shuck's legend. These stories transformed the creature from myth into living folklore, carried by the voices of the people who swore they had seen it, felt it, and barely escaped it. Legends like the Black Shuck do not survive for centuries by accident. They linger because they leave a mark on the human mind where fear lives longest. For many in Norfolk and Suffolk, the Shuck was more than a tale. It was a living presence in their imagination. To walk the lanes at night was to feel the weight of unseen eyes, to hear footsteps in the silence, to wonder if the glowing red gaze would appear just beyond the mist. Psychologists today might call it a shared cultural haunting. The people of East Anglia carried stories from their parents and grandparents, and those stories shaped what they expected to see. When the wind howled, they thought of the hound. When the fog thickened, they remembered the warnings. A shadow in the hedgerow became more than a trick of the eye, it became the Shuck, stepping into the world through the doorway of the mind. The creature thrived in fear. It did not need to appear every night or to haunt every village. It needed only the possibility of being there. That possibility was enough to make travelers carry charms, avoid certain paths, or hurry their steps through the mist. Fear shaped their choices, and in doing so, gave the Shuck real influence over their lives. Even more chilling was the power of suggestion. Villagers often reported similar sensations: an icy chill, heavy footsteps, glowing eyes, whether or not anything was truly there. Once someone believed in the Shuck, every strange sound or flicker of shadow could feel like proof of its existence. The line between reality and imagination blurred, until the fear itself became an encounter. This psychological weight made the Shuck more dangerous than flesh and blood. A wolf or bandit could be fought, but how do you fight a shadow, a thought, a terror passed down through centuries? In that way, the Black Shuck was less a beast of fur and fang, and more a creature of the mind, given life by those who feared it most. And yet, its power was undeniable. Farmers, sailors, priests, and travelers all left their testimonies of fear. Whether the Shuck walked beside them in reality or only in their imagination, the result was the same: sleepless nights, trembling hands, and the certainty that something immense and ancient was always close by. The Black Shuck's greatest power was not in its claws or teeth, but in its ability to live in human memory, waiting to appear in the mist, long after its first sighting. The whispers about the Black Shuck began to grow beyond the countryside, reaching towns and cities far away from Norfolk. Newspapers started printing small notes of phantom hound sightings, though most dismissed them as superstition or rural tales. Yet, for every skeptic, there was someone swearing with trembling hands that they had seen it. One of the most chilling stories came from a carriage driver on the lonely roads near Suffolk. He claimed the Shuck appeared in the middle of the road, forcing the horses into a frenzy. They bolted, dragging the carriage wildly until it overturned. When villagers rushed to help, the driver kept repeating the same words: "Eyes? The eyes were burning into me." Others reported the beast walking silently beside them for miles. Some insisted that when it appeared, tragedy struck soon after: a sudden illness, an accident, or death within the household. Fear became so real that even the bravest men refused to walk alone after nightfall. But it wasn't only travelers who spoke of the hound. Families began whispering of glowing eyes peering through windows at midnight. Doors rattled as if something heavy pressed against them. In some cases, children woke screaming, swearing they heard claws scratching at their bedroom walls. By now, the Black Shuck was no longer just a local legend. It had become a living terror that no church bell or prayer could banish. Each new sighting only added to its mystery, and each frightened witness deepened the shadow it cast over the land. For generations, the Black Shuck haunted the imaginations of Norfolk and beyond. Some swore it was only a tale invented to frighten children into staying indoors. Others believed it was a spirit, cursed to walk the earth forever. And yet, the fear it left behind was undeniably real. People changed their habits, their journeys, and even their prayers because of it. Some said the Shuck was a warning of death, arriving as a grim messenger to those who saw it. Others whispered that it was born from the sins of the past, a punishment roaming the land in search of restless souls. Whatever the truth, the legend thrived because fear itself gave it life. The most chilling thought is this: legends like the Black Shuck never truly die. They linger in whispers, in footsteps heard on lonely nights, in eyes that glow red when you swear no animal should be near. Perhaps the beast is still out there, prowling the edges of foggy fields and abandoned roads, waiting for its next witness. And that brings us here, to you. Do you believe the Black Shuck was only a story told by frightened villagers? Or was it something more, something beyond human understanding? Could it have been a real creature, a phantom, or even a symbol of our deepest fears? Every culture has its legends, monsters, spirits, or shadows that follow us through time. What does that say about us? Are these just stories, or are they warnings we should take more seriously? Here's the lesson. Fear can shape how we live, even when it comes from things we cannot prove. Sometimes, the scariest monsters are the ones that live in our minds, born from doubt, grief, and the unknown. So, I ask you, would you dare walk alone down a foggy road at midnight, knowing the Black Shuck might appear? Do you think such legends are real, or do we make them real by believing in them? Drop your answer in the comments. I want to hear your thoughts. And if you enjoyed this story, don't forget to subscribe and follow for more terrifying, curiosity-driven tales that will keep you awake at night. The Black Shuck's legend may have ended here, but the world is filled with many more mysteries waiting to be told. Will you be brave enough to hear them?